Hey everyone, and welcome to my guide on Nechryaels. Let's start by going over locations first. The first area you can find them in is the Catacombs of Kourend, and this spot is very popular because you can burst, barrage, or chin Nechryaels here. You can also find them in the Iorwerth dungeon after the Song of the Elves quest. This spot is pretty good because you can bring a cannon, and the Nechryaels here drop crystal shards. You can also find them at the Slayer Tower. Not only can you get 10% bonus Slayer experience depending on your Mauritania diary, but there are lots of good safe spots. If you safe spot, Nechryaels cannot summon spawns. The last location is the Wilderness Slayer Cave in 25 Wilderness. This spot is pretty good. The only issue is that this location is Slayer task only, and you have to be on high alert for player killers. So let's talk about the monsters. Generally speaking, greater Nechryaels and the death spawns that appear during the fight aren't that dangerous with the correct gear setups. The issue lies in the superior Nechryarch, more specifically the 3 chaotic spawns that use the combat triangle. When you turn on Protect Melee, it fully negates the damage from the Nechryarch and the melee spawn. But you can see that the other spawns have a magic and range level of 380 with an attack speed of 1.8, so they will chip away at your health fast if you're not wearing sufficient armor. There are 3 popular ways to deal with the Nechryarch. If you're bursting or barraging, you want to bring Blood Barrage or Blood Burst and focus the superior. The second method is to kill the superior like any other NPC, but when you see the chaotic spawns, you run out of aggression range, which is about 10 tiles or so. Once the spawns are unaggressive, run back and attack the superior. The third strategy is when the Nechryarch spawns, you immediately get it stuck on something, then switch to a different weapon and attack it from distance. By not letting it hit you, it won't summon its chaotic spawns. Before we move on to the next section, feel free to put a cannon in your inventory if your location allows it, and you can also adjust your rune light settings as well. We'll first talk about non-wilderness setups first. You can see here, I've ranked the best setups you can use against Nechryaels, including a list of Demonbane weapons and useful items you can bring in your inventory. Nechryaels have virtually no magic defense, so your magic accuracy has very little effect on your DPS. Just make sure to keep it above 0. So here are 3 barrage setups. The first example is catered towards someone who has access to most magic damage items, with a sprinkle of defense from the Masori body fortified. The second setup is a welfare version of the first. The third is something I would bring if I didn't have superiors unlocked. The only thing you really need to focus on is a positive magic accuracy and very high /defense. If you're using magic at single combat locations, you can just switch out the barrage staffs with single combat staffs. If you're looking for alternatives for building a magic setup, I made a rank list so you can customize your setup to your liking. You can also use chins against Nechryaels in multi, but you have to be careful because you'll lose all of them if you die. I recommend doing multiple trips so you don't have to bring as many in one go. But here I made 3 identical setups with different Chinchompa types, and you can see the price difference for completing a task, and the task times you could get depending on the Chinchompas you use. You can also use a non-Chinchompa range setup. The Scorching Bow is king with its 30% damage and accuracy boost, but you can also use different range weapons if you'd like. If you're looking for alternatives for a range setup, I made a rank list so you can customize your setup to your liking. You can also use a melee setup against Nechryaels. The scythe can be used in multi to attack multiple Nechryaels at once, and it can give better DPS than the Emberlight, but at a much higher cost. You can also use a more welfare setup in single combat areas using an Emberlight or Arclight with a mix of slash magic and range defense. If I don't have superiors unlocked, I would create a setup that maximizes my strength and slash defense bonuses. If you're looking for alternatives for a melee setup, I made a rank list so you can customize your setup to your liking. And here's a magic, ranged, and melee setup for the wilderness. I ranked the setups based on their DPS, and I highly recommend reading all the notes underneath to prepare yourself. All 3 setups are built around 3 valuables, and the rest of the gear is welfare with good slash, magic, and range defense. You can see the DPS difference between the 3 setups, including the amount I'm risking in armor and the amount I am risking in resources. If you're uncomfortable with the risk, you can always adjust for cheaper armor, bring less resources, and just do multiple trips. Your task will be a bit longer because you have to run back, but it can be worth it, especially if you play during peak hours. So here are alternatives for a wilderness magic setup. Focus on 3 valuables. If you're using wilderness weapons, don't fill it with more than 2,000 Revenant Ether. Here are alternatives for a wilderness range setup. Don't bring too much ammo like arrows. 600 to 700 is fine, and you can always do multiple trips. And here are alternatives for a wilderness melee setup. Normal weapons are fine against Nechryaels. With wilderness weapons, you're risking a few 100k if you get PK'd, so it's up to you. All of these gear setups were pulled straight from the NoBS OSRS calculator, a tool which allows you to test any gear combo in seconds. It has over 10,000 gear options to choose from, including their prices, their stats, as well as an interface that lets you see costs and DPS outputs faster than any calculator that's out there. If you're interested in trying it out, click the link in the description box below to find out more. We're now going over each location. When you choose your travel method, place the teleport items in your inventory, and you can also use the timestamps in the video player to skip to your location. For the Catacombs of Kourend, you need to investigate the statue next to the castle, which brings you to the center of the catacombs. Once you're there, you run this way to the Nechryals. Either room is fine. The best teleport to the statue is by using a Kourend castle teleport. You can also use a Xeric's talisman to Xeric's heart. Another option is using a minecart to Hordle, or you can use the Carrot's Memoirs or Book of the Dead to teleport to the lunch by the Lencaliums. So here are some example inventory setups. Anything in yellow is an optional item you can bring. And here is how I would set up my quick prayers, and feel free to adjust them to your preference. So here is the in-game example. Let's investigate the statue to go into the catacombs. We'll first head north, then east past the hill giants and bloodvelds. Once we're at the Nechryals, I like to stand anywhere in the northeast corner. We can then turn on our prayers, we can drink our goading potion, or you can wield and throw darts to get a whole bunch aggressive, then use our stat boosting potions or items, choose the attack style or spell, turn on auto retaliate, and we'll just monitor our prayer points if they get low. If the superior spawns or you're low on health, use Blood Barrage as your main spell to heal back up to full. Now let's go over the Iorwerth dungeon, and the cave entrance is southwest of the city. Once you're inside, you can use the agility shortcut for quick access to the Nechryals. If not, you can run east, use Protect Melee against the buffed Moss Giants, then use any of the two rooms. The best way to get to the Iorwerth dungeon is by using a Prifddinas House teleport and running south. You can also set your respawn point to Prifddinas and teleport using a Ring of Returning. Another option is using any of the teleport crystals, or you can use a Spirit Tree to Prifddinas. So here are some example inventory setups. Anything in yellow is an optional item you can bring. And here is how I would set up my quick prayers, and feel free to adjust them to your preference. So here is the in-game example. Let's go into the dungeon, and I'm going to take the agility shortcut and head south. So here are the Nechryals. Go ahead and drop your cannon down, turn on your quick prayers, drink your stat boosting potions, turn on auto retaliate, click your cannon so it's firing, and just watch your health and prayer points if they get low. Now let's go over the Slayer Tower. If you're on a Slayer task, you can climb down the ladder into the basement and run north to the Nechryals. You can also kill the ones on the second floor, which requires a nose peg for the aberrant specters. You use the first agility shortcut here, then go to the other shortcut to get to the Nechryals. If you don't have the agility requirements, you have to take the longer path and climb the stairs at the ends of each room to get to the Nechryals. The fastest way to get to the Slayer Tower is with a Slayer Ring teleport. You can also use the fairy ring code CKS and run north. You can also use a Salve Graveyard teleport, or by using a Kourend teleport to Canifis. So here are some example inventory setups. Anything in yellow is an optional item you can bring. And here is how I would set up my quick prayers, and feel free to adjust them to your preference. So here is the in-game example. I'll show you my favorite spot in the basement first, and we're just going to run directly north. If you're using melee, it's pretty straightforward. Drink your stat boosting potions and turn on your prayers and attack them. But if you're using ranged or magic, there are tables in the middle of the room. You just simply attack the Nechryals from one side and get it stuck on the other. And by doing this, you'll take no damage, and the Nechryals and Superiors will never summon spawns. I'll quickly show you the Nechryals on the second floor, and I'm going to use all the agility obstacles. Make sure to wear a nose peg or Slayer helmet before going up the chain, and you can just follow my path to get to the Nechryals. Once you're there, you can see the location of the safe spot. You can turn the screen, but just like the basement, attack the Nechryals from one side and get it stuck on the other. Now let's go over the Wilderness Slayer cave. There are two entrances you can use, but the best one is the 18 Wilderness one. When you go in, you want to head west, then north into the Nechryal's room. One of the fastest teleports is using a burning amulet to the Chaos Temple and running northeast. You can also use a Wilderness Obelisk if you have the hard diary completed. You can also use a Games Necklace to Corporeal Beast and head out the cave. You can also use a Ring of Dueling to the Ferox Enclave, or you could use the Grouping Teleport to either Last Man Standing or Clan Wars and run east. So here are some example inventory setups. Anything in yellow is an optional item you can bring. And here is how I would set up my quick prayers, and feel free to adjust them to your preference. So here's the in-game example. Let's go into the Wilderness Slayer cave and run west. We'll then head north past the Ice Giants. Once we're in the Nechryal room, let's manually turn on our prayers. We'll use Protect Melee, any stat enhancing prayer, and Protect Item. We'll drink our Goading Potion, or you can wield and throw darts to get a whole bunch aggressive, then choose your spell and turn on Auto Retaliate. When we're low on health, we can use Blood Barrage, or we can close our looting bag and pick some of the food off the ground for heals. If we see any PKers on our minimap, have your mouse hovered over your one-click teleport to tele out immediately. If your teleblock, turn on your quick prayers, one tick eat your Angler, Brew, and Karambwan, and run south out the cave where we came in from. If you gain a gap and the PKer isn't attacking you, log out. And that's everything on how to kill Nechryals. Let me know in the comments what other monsters you'd like to see, and if you can take a second to like the video, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.